Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to International Affairs, proudly broadcasting from the SATV's Gulshan studio here in the capital, Dhaka. My name is Shamsul Pantha, and I will bring you the updates that we have garnered over the weekend, as today is Sunday and we begin on a fresh new week. Of course, before I begin the discussion, let me introduce my panelists here in the studio. We have John Dalton, our international consultant. I welcome him onto this program on a very nice Sunday, as well as Norman Floyd Barnes from District of Columbia, Washington, who is joining us as the SATV geopolitical correspondent in Washington. Very good morning to Norman. I want to begin in the studio regarding what we understood of the week. We have seen and we have heard whether or not the U.S. administration and military would be taking stances against Iran and an attack as of Saturday. But such the situation has not increased as of yet. We have seen, and according to the news, we have seen that Jordan, a neighboring country to Israel, ruled out allowing its territory to be used as a launch point for military action against Iran, as told in the New York Times. I want to ask John Dalton, the issue with Iran is not new, and it has been prolonging for the last 50 or so days of this year, and we understand how it has huge implications towards other neighborhood countries inside the Middle East. What is your observations?
Well, I think they're doing the best they can to keep the pressure on, to get concessions, as many concessions as they possibly can. To reference what Norman has said in the past, and he'll speak for himself, of course, is that you don't mobilize those kind of military assets unless you plan to use them. So that's the risk factor that is being imposed on Iran to come to some kind of agreement to stop the enrichment of uranium and also to close down some of their nuclear facilities. I think the action by Jordan is a steadfast ally of the United States. And so when the king takes a position like that he's not going to allow Jordan to be a staging area, and I believe the UK has made similar decisions, and there's American bases in both of those countries. I think it's a kind of recognition by part of the global community that pushing this sort of like warlike, bellicose attitude coming out of the United States has to be modulated. I think if Hegseth had his way, of course, he might counsel the president to attack, and Netanyahu would counsel the president to attack. I hope not, because it definitely would have a long-term destabilizing effect on United States relations in the region.
Of course, very important updates coming from John Dalton. Over the weekend, we've also heard that Iran is conducting several missile testing going on in the Strait of Hormuz. Let me specify how it happened. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC Navy, has tested the Sayad 3G air defense missile for the first time during the smart control drills in the Strait of Hormuz. There has been significant disruption in this global choke point that carries almost 20% of the world's crude oil. I want to focus more with Norman Floyd Barnes. There are some strategic updates regarding the Iran-US possible conflict. However, there is news from the United States that the Supreme Court rules Trump global tariffs as illegal. That was one of the headlines coming through over the weekend. I want to know what are the vibes that you collect from this. Some Republicans are saying that this is a Trump maneuver that had actually helped Donald Trump for the coming days, courtesy of the Supreme Courts. I want to understand from Norman Floyd Barnes. A very good morning to you, sir. What are your observations?
Greetings from, hello? Yeah, greetings
Yes.
from Washington. Over the weekend, the Trump administration has responded to the ruling by the Supreme Court that his emergency tariffs program has been designated as illegal. So what that means is that the additional tariffs put on by the Trump administration to countries that did not comply with the oil and other things, they have ruled that that action is not legal in terms of the Constitution. The president has the authority to put a tax on on certain things coming into the country, and they have a period of 90, actually a period of 150 days to impose that for the effect to base the charge a rate anywhere between 10 and 15%. That's what the courts rule is legal. You can do that, but it's only for a finite period of time. Do that to basically stabilize the economy and deal with other issues. In this situation, after the court ruled that his initial emergency tariffs, taxes, was found illegal, that means that the money collected from that illegal act has to be returned. Right now, that looking at about 197 million, excuse me, 197 billion dollars. That's a lot of money to get back. So what's happening is that the courts has also given him the leeway of taxation, which means he has the ability to tax things that he want. And in this situation, the president decided on Friday that he's going to put a 10% tax, global tax, on everything, in addition to what he have to basically recoup some of these losses that he's expecting to come on. So that started a whole shockwave of feelings between the countries and already such things, but it was not the end of the day. Then again, on Saturday, the president had a change of mind. He basically saying, you know what? I'm not happy with what the court said. I'm not happy with the situation. This is unpatriotic. So he immediately imposed a new tariff rate of 15%. That 15% goes in effect immediately and is globally. And like I said before, the court said that he can inflict that that 15% tariffs is for a period of 150 days, and after that he has to do it again. So basically, he has found a way to circumvent the court's decision. The Republicans trying to figure out how this thing works. The Democrats is not happy about this. The world is outraged on this 15% additional tariffs that's being implemented immediately by the United States. So this is causing a lot of concern about how this government is running things, how we are treating our neighbors, well, maybe ex-neighbors now, our allies, and then at the same time, we are looking at issues here in the United States that's still going on. The prices are going up. I'll give you an example. I had to get some paint to patch up a ceiling. That contractor come in, had to get some white flat paint. A gallon of paint has now accelerated to 100 US dollars. You hear me? 100 US dollars for 1 gallon of paint. And that's the direct reflection of what things going on. So the people are feeling that it's in the pocketbooks, the stores, the groceries, the ability to buy things. These costs, these changes are going to have a direct and a profound effect on the citizens and the everyday people who work in the United States. Yes, the other countries are going to pass, they're going to frown on it and they're not going to like it, but that's going to be passed on to the consumer. So once again, the consumer has to brunt this pain and infliction while the Trump administration get over his hissy, whatever they're doing on dealing with the world and not being accepted. So now this leads into the midterm. So this adds more fuel onto how the country feels about the current administration and how the current administration feels about the country and what's going on globally.
Of course, very important updates coming from Norman Floyd Barnes, as he was, of course, asking and stating the fact that consumers at the end of the day are affected, even while giving an example regarding how a bucket of paint could become affected due to these tariff increase. Of course, Donald Trump, the US president, said yesterday that he will increase this global tariff he imposed a day earlier from 15% starting from 10%, so another 5% increase, even while there is an adverse ruling at the Supreme Court. And you were hearing Norman from DC. I want to understand what are your views regarding this matter. Even the tariff issue, it's a very old issue, but is now starting to affect common Americans.
Yeah, well, a tariff is a tax. The taxing authority in the Constitution is reserved to Congress. Trump defied that law, and under the Emergency Economic Powers Act, imposed tariffs, these massive tariffs that he tried to twist people's arms and get them to obey. His contention was that this would force people to buy more American products, that our trade deficit would decline. We now have the data for the last year in which the trade deficit in the United States has increased. The trade deficit with China has reduced marginally, but all the other countries saw this as an opportunity, and companies that were importing goods saw it as an opportunity. So the trade deficit has gone up. And that was totally contrary to the policy intent that Trump had in mind. This new 10 to 15% tax is from a 1974 law, 1974, okay? So 50 years ago, this law was enacted to deal with emergency powers and emergency situations. And once again, Trump is seizing on this old law for a short period of time, 150 days, to try to show that he is a strong man capable of imposing his will. But trade depends on predictability. Trade depends on the parties, the buyer and the seller, understanding what the terms of trade are going to be. If you have a guy who is unpredictable, and a country which is unpredictable, the United States, it's going to have a significant effect on the world trade situation. And it's going to lead to confusion, because we talk about the tariff, and let's take a look at any company here that's selling goods to the United States. Let's say a ready-made garment factory is selling goods to Walmart. Last week, they signed a contract with a certain specified price per unit based upon the tariff structure. That structure's gone away. I mean, there's no, Walmart's not going to reimburse RMG factory in Bangladesh. And trying to get your money back in that situation is going to be very costly, time-consuming, and in the end, also unpredictable. So while we have this enormous uncertainty, always uncertainty with Trump, of acting arbitrarily and outside the law, I think that even this Congress, he's making a State of the Union address, and he'll complain against the Supreme Court and everybody else. This is a problem of his own making. And as Norman has indicated, this is a year for a by-election. Congress every member of Congress is up for election. And 1/3 of the Senate is up for election. This is going to be one of the hammering points that are going to come up for sure. And so I think they simply have to somebody, because Bessent agrees with Trump totally, the Secretary of the Treasury, but if they have to get into a situation where we are on stable, steady ground for trade relations, you can't have this unpredictable, spasmodic kind of activity which is going on.
Of course, very important discussions we're having regarding this uncertainty that's looming not only in the United States but as well as all the economies that are tied with business and trade deals with the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to take a short commercial break. Do stay with us. Hello and welcome to International Affairs, and my name is Shamsul Pantha.
I don't see an easy resolution to this because every slight deviation from the plan,
opening an open war conflict with them,
testing nuclear missiles,
Russia's announcement of these supposedly successful testing,
special and exclusive footage that is being played on SATV screen,
Really coming to terms with Hamas.
Damage estimated between this entire issue.
President Trump is expected to hold bilateral talks.
preserving biodiversity and tackling climate change.
We cannot protect the planet before we negotiate peace.
Where is it going? Is it understanding the needs of its people before the needs of this global world?
For China to come to agreement.
They will face better projects.
with President Xi of China and President Lee of South Korea.
Trump's White House that is in favor of these things.
Simply not enough action being taken to address the problem of fossil fuels.
What their plan initially is towards the Caribbean, a place that has been met with two types of disasters.
Bangladeshi students at the same level of opportunity internationally and domestically.
International Affairs. Watch every Sunday to Thursday at 2 p.m. only on SATV and SATV Digital. Hello and welcome to International Affairs, and my name is Shamsul Pantha.
I don't see an easy resolution to this because every slight deviation from the plan,
opening an open war conflict with them.
testing nuclear missiles.
Russia's announcement of these supposedly successful testing
Special and exclusive footage that is being played on SATV's screen.
Really coming to terms with Hamas.
Damage estimated between this entire issue.
President Trump is expected to hold bilateral talks.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back on International Affairs. Today I'm joined with John Dalton in the studio while we have Norman Floyd Barnes from Washington, D.C. I want to begin with Norman. We were definitely talking about the Middle Eastern tensions. There is many news that is coming in. I'll give you some of these articles that Iran has designated the armed forces of the European Union member states as terrorist entities in a tit-for-tat move. The European Union members have also designated the IRGC as a terrorist entity. I understand this is a trying time for the Middle East. We've seen how Israel has, of course, not followed the norms and the rules for a ceasefire with Lebanon, almost 6 killed and 25 injured over the weekend. And of course, the U.S. ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, has said it would be fine if Israel took control of vast swath of the Middle East, drawing a swift rebuke from regional and other Muslim majority states. I want to start with Norman. What is your understanding of the situation? We know that this climactic event is all surrounded by the Middle Eastern nations, and as of today, we understand that many troops are being pulled out of the Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. So I want to understand what are the vibes that you're holding regarding these issues.
Yes, it's a very peculiar situation that's occurring in the Middle East. I've spoken to my colleagues in the Middle East, Dubai, and they're talking everything. Well, everything is calm to the point where they are preparing to move their families with passports out of the country once they get an indication of trouble brewing. So right now, there's been preparation to basically deal with. They feel that it's a impending conflict with the U.S. and Iran.
Right.
So what that means for the people say in Dubai, it's a spillover. There's no way that they can stay neutral. We have a military base in the UAE. There's a lot of activity happening in that region regarding the movement of aircrafts, the movement of ships, the movement of military equipment. And this is on both sides. Iran is conducting deep drills, and they are now, I share with you, they are receiving cargo from other countries. Far East countries are now bringing in almost every hour, dropping military technology equipment to Iran to assist them with their defense. So things are moving forward. Countries like Syria, you mentioned, is saying that no air flights are going to come over their country, allowed to come out their countries. The bases are being restricted. The same thing, the UAE even mentioned that the UAE, they're not going to want the U.S. or Israel to use as airspace in conjunction with this conflict. So basically what we're looking at is that the Brotherhood of the Nations are now communicating, and they're talking about this impending attack, and they're trying to mitigate the outcome of this. They're trying to send a clear message to Iran that, hey, we work with these people, but we're not them. We're not them, and don't take it out on us. So they know that something is planning to occur. There's going to be a prolific response to the Americans and whoever supports them in the region. They will take the brunt of the attack. If you attack Iran, we're going to blow the region up. We're going to cause problems to the point where the U.S. has to make changes. There's too much money, there's too much resources. Trade and commerce is going to be affected. The Suez Canal. We have the issue around it. The Strait is going to, they're talking about mining that. So if you stop that movement of flow, trades, goods, shipments, and that will stop if there's the war. Once the war stops, that will be off limits, that area. Airspace, water spaces, everything. It would be considered a combat red zone. So the world economy will have effect, at least 20% of it initially, but more so it will cost more because this is not something that's going to be just germane to that area of Iran and that area around the Strait. This is going to be something unknown currently, and that's the issue why the U.S. hasn't went in already, because there's too many unknowns. The intelligence is being blocked. Things are being covered up so they can't see it. They're working basically as a blind man in the region, and this is because the countries are now shutting the door, say, hey, we're not involved in this. We don't want to be involved. We don't want to have the repercussions of this. So basically what we're going to do, we're not going to communicate what we see and what we know, and we're just going to basically protect our own and close the door and tell you have to come in another way versus coming in our countries. This is causing a problem to the U.S. because we are basically going into a potential global conflict blindly into the region. You're going into Iran, which is a vast country, and we have no way of what their response going to be. And if not, we'll be able to get out in one piece. So it's very, very cautiously, we're looking at the situation exactly when. We know there's going to be a attack, but the question is when and how. It will be a surgical attack or it will be a protracted long term. What we're concerned about is we go in there with the intention of having a surgical strike and get out. The issue is that is not guaranteed. We go in and we may get into something that we don't want to get into, and have to stay there and have to put boots on the ground, other resources, and our neighbors are being attacked, and we have to come back and help with them. And so this is a situation where, yes, you can come in, you can attack, you can blow up a couple buildings, but what we do, you will not know. You will see your infrastructure and your neighbors and the people you deal with will be severely impacted by this. Is this something United States wants to get into? So that is the question: that is this something that the United States want to engage in it, and are they prepared for the repercussions? It's not the attack, it's the repercussions. Thank you.
I must thank Norman Floyd Burns for analyzing so swiftly on this very hazardous situation happening in the Middle East. Of course, it is right now a combat red zone. And I was, of course, talking about how Arab countries are strongly condemning Mike Huckabee's statement in an interview with Tucker Carlson. And almost all Arab countries are saying it was absurd and provocative, in which he openly accepted Israel's control over the entire Middle East, including the occupied West Bank. So I want to have a comment from John Dalton, as you were also hearing Norman, and how it will be carried out, how this attack will be carried out, and when, the significance and your analysis.
Well, I think Norman had a very, very good summary about the fact that we are entering into a situation disregarding the intelligence, not being aware of the situation on the ground. And I think he would agree with me, although I don't put words in his mouth. There's no reason for the United States to act as an agent of Israel in this situation with respect to Iran. Iran bears no bad feeling toward us, nor we to them. And so if we're doing this action, you can trace it back to the kind of the lineage that sort of has Netanyahu directly affecting American foreign policy, which is pretty dangerous. Now, about Mike Huckabee. Mike Huckabee is the former governor of Arkansas, and he is a staunch Christian nationalist.
Okay.
And his whole approach about Israel being taken over all of the Middle East is not because of their atomic power, not because of their anything having to do with their politics. It's because he has some biblical fantasy about Jerusalem being the center of the new universe, and that some kind of a religious experience will come, and Israel should pursue that religious experience because they have the right to Judea and Samaria, which are two former names for that area.
Right.
Usually they'll talk about from the river to the sea, from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. But his was even more expansive than that. He was suggesting that Israel had a natural right to expand their control over a broader territory in the Middle East.
From the Nile to the Euphrates River, as the news says.
But this is the kind of provocative statement that plays well with the Trump base, which feeds back into the decision-making process by Hegseth and other people, and puts everybody at risk. I think we're waiting to see whether it's surgical or whether it's more intensive than that. But I think that somehow this whole aggressive, belligerent, bellicose attitude of the administration has got to be reined in by someone. The Congress was a logical choice, because he's putting lives at risk and people's whole careers at risk for no apparent reason other than to show that they're buddy-buddy with Israel. And this friendship with Israel, unfortunately, is having a huge increase in anti-Semitism in the United States. I'll leave it at that, Panto.
Thank you so much, John Dalton, for your observations and insights on this program. I want to also thank Norman Floyd Barnes for giving a very descriptive analysis regarding the situation in the Middle East. Ladies and gentlemen, I also need to make an announcement. Due to Ramadan, the broadcasting time of this show has shortened, but however, we will still be up to date, bringing you all the news as it happens. Of course, today there is a historical significant event from February 22nd, 1732 is the birthday of the first U.S. President, George Washington. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for today. I shall catch you all on tomorrow's International Affairs.